Dude, come on. I mean, when you're the...
We might not see eye to eye on this. Welcome to Musing. Every once in a while, my brother George and I would have these conversations about music. Music is our passion, and it's a huge part of our lives, and we decided to share those conversations with you. So if you love music, sit back and enjoy this podcast. Okay, welcome back to Musing. Got my brother on the line.
How we doing?
Good. Cold. I'm in the Northeast, so it is wind chill of low today.
Yes, so. And I'm cold too. I'm in West Central Florida, and it's cold for us even, so.
Yeah, what's below 50?
Yes.
Maybe
it's below 40, actually. So.
What? No. Today is our continuing, I don't know what to call it, a session, but it's kind of a session with picking the positions of rock bands and talking about them. We're on drummers today, so...
Boom, for lack of a better pun.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, let's jump right in. I mean, you just want to kind of like 1, 2, 3 and say the number one drummer in rock music. No, I'm just kidding.
I was just say I wasn't that prepared. I have a bunch of good ones, but I don't know if I didn't have them in I had sort of an order, I guess. But
well, I will say that we talked about not doing research on these too much, and I didn't do much research. You might have, but it was just more to get names of guys that I've listened to and heard and went, wow, that the drum beat really kind of brings that song or that band together, and I just want to get some names down so I knew. But
right, same here. I mean, that's I knew some of them, but more or less, and it's a short list of. If we're using the term list, it's a short list, but it's for me, it's just a few of the highlights. And I mean, there's a lot of good drummers. I mean, if you're a bad drummer, that's noticeable. That's been my thing with drummers anyway. So, and
I think one of the things I did notice about some of the people that they put at the top of a lot of the lists, it varies. And I know this is kind of going down a different route, but it varies by drum kit size.
Oh yeah.
That one of the things I was going to bring up at some point, we can probably just jump in on that, was, I noticed a lot of prolific drummers have massive tools at hand. I mean,
sure.
When you think of like Neil Peart, you think of him basically sitting in a circle of drums that goes completely around him, in some of the videos and stuff.
Absolutely.
And then you got guys like Keith Moon who have like a
snare and a kick.
and did amazing things with it.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely.
So I think it was kind of strange to see, the top of the list being such, weird arrangements of people, weird dispersed, genres of musicians, and it's weird too because of most of the lists that I looked at are going to be rock, and it's because that's what we listen to on a regular basis.
Right.
But a couple of them actually had Buddy Rich at the top, which I don't think I would have put in that genre.
Well, he has to be recognized. I mean, he has to be acknowledged, I guess, if you're talking drums. I mean, I guess it would.
Yeah, but does he? I mean, if I'm going to look at a list of the bands that I gravitate to, it's going to include people that played in rock bands. And
well, yeah.
Again, I had to look up some of them, and to see him at the top of the list I went.
Yeah, but what was the list, Kat? I mean, I didn't look at lists. The only research I did was some of the more obscure bands that I listened to. I wouldn't even say more obscure bands. Some of the bands I listened to had changed drummers, and I wanted to make sure I got the right drummer on the right album, the right point. Stuff like that. That's as far as I got.
Well, you know what? Let's before I come back to that and tell you what the list was, let's springboard off something you just said, because that's kind of important. So, being when we talked about singers was the front man. Singer is the kind of the sound of the band.
Right.
I mean, yes, there's going to be a musical sound as well, but it's not going to be as defined as the singer. I mean, you can pop another person into the drums and it's going to sound close.
Right.
You can't really pop another person into the singer's position and get that same exact feel that you can from a band that either lost a singer or the singer left.
Agreed.
I mean, take Black Sabbath as a big one, and even AC/DC.
Sure.
You put Brian Johnson in there, and he's similar, but
it's
in a completely different vein.
Absolutely.
But drummers are, I honestly think they're almost as crucial as the singer in making a band sound the right way.
But they're infinitely more interchangeable.
Correct. And so, like for me, I'm going to go straight back to my wheelhouse and go with Guns N' Roses. And when you took somebody who had a swing feel to their drumming with Adler, and he gets kicked out for obvious reasons, and then you put somebody like Matt Sorum in there, who's an amazingly technical musician when it comes to drums, but didn't have that looseness. It was a completely different sound when you went to Use Your Illusion and you listen to the drums on those two albums.
I agree. And Steven Adler gets very little mention as far as actual, like when they talk about Guns N' Roses drummer, it's Matt Sorum instantly. I mean, nobody even mentions Steven Adler.
Which, again, if you listen to those two albums, the Appetite and then Use Your Illusion pair, there is a big difference in the feel of the music.
Absolutely.
And so to come back to my list, I went with top 10 rock drummers, top 50 rock drummers, top 100 rock drummers. And, to see Buddy Rich in some of those, just in general, in some of them, was kind of a little shocking. A couple of them actually put him at number one.
Well, I mean, again, this is opinion. Our podcasts in general are 100% opinion driven. And
no, it's fact. You guys just need to.
Okay, well, my half of the podcast is opinion driven. No, it's so. I mean, I guess
that's the way we should tout it. I'll be bad cop. You can be good cop.
Okay, well, fair enough. Well, there's a level of, again, at least respect that you have to give. But I mean, we went the top 25 rock songs. And we went clear back to Elvis in the mid 50s.
True.
So you can base that on your definition of rock, or you can base that on what we listen to. So I get it. Well, as far as best rock drummers of all time, I can't see him being number one on a list. But I mean, there has to be a level of noted respect, at least, anyway.
Yeah, and influence. I mean,
sure. Absolutely.
We talk about that in a lot of positions that we talk about in a lot of music and a lot of songs, and we can jump right straight to that, our favorite one to pick on, which is Greta Van Fleet, and heavily influenced by a band. And so if you look at some of these drummers, it's interesting too, because I think when I looked at singers, the time frame was a pretty small gap of time frame. When I look at the drummer lists, it's wide. There is a big, they put a lot of current drummers on the list. A lot of, people that were influenced by the other half of the list, basically.
Right. Well, you almost have to. I mean, because there's not I don't know. It's not like comparing, B.B. King to Stevie Ray Vaughan. I mean, when you're comparing drummers, let's be honest, there's not a whole lot of technique difference. I mean, there is, but there isn't. I mean, if you're going from, like you said, a small kit to a, Nico McBrain from Iron Maiden style kit, there's a noticeable difference in sound or ability to make more sounds.
Right.
But there's not, I mean, when you're like we did when we're doing, bass guitar, I mean, you got a, 4-string, 5-string, 6-string guitar, bass guitar. There's not, I mean, it's how you play it. Yes. But I mean, the amount of you use the word, the amount of tools that the artist is given or that he chooses to use, I think has just as much as influence as anything. I mean, you can make I like the Black Keys, and he uses literally like a kick, a snare, like one tom and a cymbal. I mean, that's basically it. Patrick, I can't think of his last name off the top of my head. But I mean, there's a level of when you go to the heavier rock. I mean, you almost need more influence or need more tools to make the sound that you're trying to make, because the difference between, like literally, like the Stray Cats. I mean, he stands up and plays. I mean, he has like basically a kick and a snare, and that's it.
Yeah.
So I mean,
but the music fits it. I mean,
exactly. You made my point for me. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So when you get to Lamb of God, you kind of need two kick basses with quad pedals and 45 cymbals, and it gets to be it's based on because Elvis's drummer, I'm sure, is different than Iron Maiden's drummer. And as far as they both play drums, it's not the same.
and I think that the only point I'll argue or point at is that I think that drummers do still have a feel,
absolutely,
to what they do, and I think it's odd too, because I've always felt about drums that there is it's a timekeeping tool.
Sure.
And, a lot of guys are using click tracks and stuff in their ears to kind of keep time with the songs and stuff sometimes. If not, the drummer is your timekeeper.
Sure.
And I always felt that was kind of weird, that the person that needed to be on precision, that if you varied a little bit, like if you were off, 1/32 of a beat and picked it up on the next one, that actually sounded cooler.
Yeah.
I'd sent a video to you and Pete Pardo a while back about John Bonham and how the off timing of the way he plays, but he picks up on, a couple measures later and rounds it out, is what made his drumming so prolific and so stellar. And again, in a band that was, had standouts in every position.
Sure.
And I think that's so odd to think of the timekeeping piece being variable, being something that could be a swing feel where you're off that much of a beat and pick it up on the next one. And man, Bonham was one of the ones that could do that, just as you always put it, as an Olympic athlete.
Right. And see, that segues into one of my favorites, Danny Carey of Tool, that does it intentionally. Mm-hmm. They're offbeat intentionally. They're off meter, they're 5/8 beats, and they'll go back to it. They change it up like different every verse. They can, he'll change that beat up in a song, and it's like at the end of 46 and 2. It always blows me away. I have no idea. It seems like he has no idea where he's at in the song, and it always seems better every time I hear it.
You said.
Go ahead.
You said Slayer or Tool?
Tool.
Oh, okay.
Danny Carey of Tool.
You said Danny Carey, and I heard Danny King.
Oh, yeah, Carey King. Yeah,
Carey King. I mean.
Yeah. Well, that's
no, 100% no. And when you start looking at drummers like that, and you start looking at drummers like Dream Theater, Portnoy from Dream Theater,
right,
who go out of their way to make those off time signatures. But I think that feels a little different to me, because it feels like they're actually playing with time, and people like Bonham are playing with timing. And that's how I see it different.
No, absolutely. I was just trying to make a comparison.
Oh, yeah.
In like you said, he makes it up where they're doing it intentionally.
And he would go from 4/4 to 6/4 to 12/18 and back to 4/4 in the same song.
Right.
You're right. Tool is definitely. I kind of hate myself for not adding that to my list of drummers, because he makes that sound. He makes Tool's sound.
He's actually on the top of my list as far as as far as mesmerizing. I mean, again, to me, drumming is something. It's a measure of time,
right?
And it, like you said, it keeps everybody else kind of in place. But as far as standouts, there are a few, but Danny Carey's always been the top of my list. There are a lot of great drummers, a lot of great percussionists, but his ability to make me feel confused, but it sounds right. It's not, because you're like trying to nod your head along with the song. It's like, damn it, where am I supposed to be? And then it's right back where it should be. That's what
I know. I agree.
It kind of always. And I don't even like all of Tool's material. It just, his drumming always stood out as special in a sea of drummers. You know what I mean? So, and that's some of that's the writing. But I mean, if you can't do it, if you can't keep up with it, it's not going to work.
Well, especially when you're talking about changing time signatures and stuff in the middle of songs,
right.
You got to be pretty good to do that.
Right.
And little side story, the local band I was in, Contrast, the first drummer we had, Josh Bowles, was big Tool fan, and we even had a couple songs that did that. Some of the breakdowns at the end of one of our songs changed to I think it was a 6/6 meter, and we dropped back into 4/4. And I'll tell you, man, it was the hardest thing for me to do as a guitar player, to do that.
Oh yeah.
to keep the feel of the song moving, and to change meter and then come back into it. And I got a lot of respect for drummers that can do that. I really hate myself that he wasn't higher on the top of my list at that point too. So
well, I mean, now everything else is anticlimactic, I guess, for me. So,
so that are we done? Your top of the list is done.
I'm done.
We're set. Okay.
I'm done. You can go ahead and talk.
I've got kind of a strange one that sits pretty close to the top of my list. I am a Bonham fan. I really love what his sound does to Led Zeppelin's music, but I'm actually a Dave Grohl fan at the top of my list.
He's on my list. I have 7 people wrote down, and he's 6th. But
I feel the work that he did early with Nirvana was instrumental in changing who they were going to be. If I'm not mistaken, there was a drummer briefly before him that didn't fit the bill very well.
Right.
And then when he stepped in, it just kind of changed the chemistry of the entire group and the music alone. And even his early work on Queens of the Stone Age it's
just brilliant. That's I was waiting for. I was going to see if you were going to say it, but yeah, no. I think his fluidity, or whatever you want to call it, he is mesmerizing to watch play drums. He's one of my favorite visual drummers because he gets into it.
Yeah, and I think it definitely translates over into what he's doing now.
Sure.
What he's done for,
20 plus years.
Does it say 22 decades at this point? I mean, with Foo Fighters, and and to not have the control to say, well, I'm just going to do the drums myself, and let somebody else do it, but still have that background of putting amazing sounds in that position down for Nirvana and for Queens of the Stone Age. And he's an all around great guy for me, musically and in the drum position too. So he's probably, I could say Bonham and him kind of fluctuate back and forth.
See, I kind of follow the same. I mean, he kind of follows the same thing with Sully Erna of Godsmack. Sully played drums for 10, 15 years or whatever, 20 years.
Yeah.
And I saw them in concert, and where they brought out a second drum kit, and he and Godsmack's drummer were literally going back and forth playing the same song. One would stop playing, and it was like in sync, and then they had like a drum battle with like pyrotechnics and stuff. And I was blown away at how good he was and then to know that he's, singer, guitar player, songwriter, performer too, but the drumming thing actually I found that out after the fact, that he was, he's a really good drummer also. But Dave Grohl is, I mean, for all his faults and for all the whatever, I like Dave Grohl. It's hard not to like the guy. I don't like all of his music, and Foo Fighters are take it or leave it at times. They've got some decent tunes, but Dave Grohl's drumming ability is definitely I like him better as a drummer in Nirvana and Queens of the Stone Age than I do the frontman of Foo Fighters. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll kind of segue that into something that I've as a musician and as a somebody who's played in a band and somebody who listens to a lot of music. There are a couple drummers out there that I feel get a lot more accolades than they really should. And I'm going to go to the negative side here and kind of start calling things out that
I know. I bet I know where you're going, and it's number 6-5 on my list.
Is it really on your top list?
Go ahead.
Oh no! I want to hear it. See if you've mixed. I've got two that I've gotten scratched down that I want to talk about. Let's see if your number 6 is one of the two.
Tommy Lee.
No, actually, I kind of like him.
Well, I mean, what he's done for the position of drummers has to be addressed. I mean, when you got a drum kit, you have to be strapped into your drum kit and you're playing upside down out over the crowd. I mean, it's a gimmick, but come on. I mean,
Well, and whether again, he didn't vary too much from the 4 on the floor straightforward rock.
Sure,
but you're right. He put rock star in the drum position.
There you go. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
It hadn't been there for quite a long time. And when Motley Crue came out, they were obviously the bad boys of rock anyways. But, A, he was good. B, like you said, he could play upside down, and C, the music
on,
fit.
But yeah, I mean, you actually coined a better phrase. He actually put Rockstar into the drummer position.
Yeah.
I mean, all his off the music chart accolades aside, I never really cared for him. I never really cared about him, but it has to be, if you're talking drummers, rock drummers, the guy almost has to be mentioned, kind of like, Buddy Rich. It's just got to be, influential, maybe, a good drummer, but I mean, like you said, if later on in your career, if you're doing stunts where you literally have to be strapped in and it's spinning and you're playing drums upside down and stuff like that, I mean, it takes a certain amount of engineering, if nothing else, just to make that work. So I guess I think throw him a bone.
Yeah, I don't think, seriously though, I don't think throwing a bone is enough for him. I really don't. I think that, I didn't really intend on coining a phrase, but I think it is. I think he really brought a star factor to that spot. And I think a lot of guys before him kind of got missed. If you talk about Steven Adler, not being brought up too much, I think a lot of guys, like that got missed because that position wasn't made so glamorous.
Right.
But where I was going initially was there's a couple drummers that, I hate to say I'm calling out, but I don't think deserve as much accolades as they get. And I saw them on a lot of lists too, like Trey Cool from
Green Day. Go ahead. What's the other one before I address that?
Meg White.
Meg White shouldn't even be in the conversation. Trey Cool, punk drumming is incredibly difficult.
Okay, so I didn't say it was wasn't difficult, and I don't think
as far as best drummers on a list of best drummers, absolutely not.
Yeah, I think that a lot of guys that were, I would have to look up, drummers from like Sex Pistols and those type of genres, but
I'm thinking like even later on, like Rise Against or Authority Zero. I mean, when you get into like the faster punk, even punk ska music, like Mighty Mighty Boss Tones and stuff like that, it's not that's not easy to do, to say the least.
And I appreciate that, I do. But if you listen to Green Day's music, I'm still not sure why they were put in the punk genre.
No.
it doesn't fit for me.
Pop rock at best. Their early stuff there's some punk influence, and what's that one that they play on the radio incessantly? Welcome to Paradise.
Welcome to Paradise. Yeah,
that's about as close to punk as I could, throw them a line to, I guess. But
yeah, well, even if you listen to like Kerplunk, the early one, or their 10,000 Slap Happy Days or whatever it was, the original, cheap recordings they did, some of it, kind of bled over to that. But if you listen to the drum lines, they're really not very intricate.
No.
They're really not. I mean, they're just played really fast, and it's almost, again, I'm not. I am picking. Those two drummers just don't fit the bill for me. They don't fit a list, and I see them popping up on a lot of lists. And
I will preface this statement with I've had zero training. I mean, other than beating chopsticks on my plate or something at the sushi place. I just about bet I could keep up with Meg White.
Yeah, I don't.
Now, Jack White, dude is impressive as far as guitar and what he does. I mean, there's some strange goings on there, and I'm sure we'll come to him in one of our next ones here with the guitar segment. But Meg White is, I don't know if there is anything average or below more so than, why would she even be on a list?
Yeah, I'm not.
As far as rock drummers?
Well, and the only thing you really need to do with that is listen to what Jack White's done on the side with like the Dead Weather or the Rocketeers, or even the song he did with Alicia Keys. Did you ever go back and listen to that?
I did.
That was pretty good. Okay. If you listen to the stuff that he's done outside of that, man, it's a completely different feel. It's still his signature guitar experimenting, but when you put it with a band and a really decent drummer and stuff, it changes.
Absolutely.
It completely changes.
Absolutely. I mean, what was that? The Hardest Button to Button.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. I could almost sit down and play it.
I mean, if you can keep any kind of time, you could probably, thunk, thunk, thunk. I mean, anyway. All right, I digress. I'm not going to.
And honestly, it was 3 or 4 on the list that I just kept looking at, and those were the top 2. And I mean, another one was like, maybe I missed it. Maybe you can fill me in. I mean, you're what, 2 years and 3/4, something younger than me.
Yeah, about like 2.5 years.
Yeah, 2.5. There you go. Explain Travis Barker to me.
Again, it's the punk thing, man. It's the yes, Blink-182 was a pop gimmick. Travis Barker's really, really good.
See, that's I don't get it.
Go on YouTube and Google some of his like drum technique He's got like training videos, not training videos, but I think he had like a you can like he would like give lessons or whatever. I don't know if that's a that's a thing, but I mean like tutorials. That's the word I was looking for. He really is a lot better than that crappy ass 3-piece thing he was associated with in Blink-182.
Yeah, it must have been because I went back and listened to some of their music not too long ago because I mean everybody kind of listened to their music when it was in the 90s and early 2000s and stuff, but I caught up with a couple of songs not too long ago on one of my Spotify lists, and like this was not really good.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, the only light I find is the one that they kind of dedicated to Nirvana, or to Kurt Cobain. I can't think of the name of the song off the top of my head. But it's kind of a slower one. Kind of sounds like a Nirvana type guitar riff through it as well. But I went back and listened to that one. I'm like, this drumming's pretty good in this. So, but that's about it. I mean, that's where I kind of lost interest with Blink and went, man, he shows up on a lot of lists too. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, that "Stay Together for the Kids." I always kind of dug that song.
That's a pretty good one too. But again, there's not a lot of intricate drum work on that one.
No. But I mean, Travis Barker, if you're comparing, like, if we're using him and Meg White, I mean, I'm taking Travis Barker all day. So just sure. I mean, I don't know if that's a comparison or not, but
can't argue with that one.
Right. I do want to blow your mind real quick. It's not like a parting shot or anything, but Mike.
I got one of those set up too. So.
Mike D.
Yeah.
Go listen.
So where do we
go? Listen to Tough Guy. The Beastie Boys Tough Guy.
Yeah, no, I know. I just, I saw them live. I got a chance to see them live years ago, before obviously he passed away and lost basically one of the best three pieces ever, 3.5, whatever you want to call it, in history. And, I always forget that they were a 3-piece punk band before they started.
Oh, yeah. And a good one.
Yeah. Not Green Day. 3-piece punk band.
Do not equate the two.
I like Green Day. I do. I really actually like Kerplunk.
That's too bad. But go ahead.
Yeah, I know. But so it kind of goes to that question we talked about with bass. Do you consider a synthesizer or
no. I'm talking about the punk drumming Mike D. I'm not talking about I'm talking about like I said, go listen
to the actual drummer. Okay.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and revisit kind of the whole album because I think everybody misses something by not going to that album and at least listening to it with an open mind.
Absolutely.
But I would say that of what little I can remember, I think it's punk drumming. I think, like I said, it's a lot better, a lot closer to what traditional punk drumming was than Green Day was.
Yeah.
But I would have to go back and listen to again, and I'll throw it on the list, obviously the Spotify list, so everybody can listen to it. But maybe I am missing one on the list there that I never saw him on any of the lists.
Yeah. Well, of course not. I mean, because people recognize him as Mike D. Is your name Michael Diamond? Nah, mine's Clarence.
No, mine's Clarence, right?
No,
I just, it's sad because again, he didn't appear on any of the lists. And
no, I know. But when you were looking up the list, did people like Don Henley and Phil Collins show up on drummer list?
Phil Collins, Don Henley did not. I'm kind of shocked now that I think about it. Phil Collins, Jimi Hendrix.
Really?
Yeah. Like on a top 50 list of drummers. Maybe it was a mistake. Who knows?
I don't know. That's out of left field. I will have to look into that, but that's out of left field for me. I've never.
Gonna have to do some research on that one.
Yeah, definitely.
Stuart Copeland.
Of course.
Ginger Baker.
Oh, definitely. 100%. So you just said the two bands that I would argue were the best 3-piece rock bands in history, exactly. Cream or the Police. I would argue either one.
Put time out on that one.
Go ahead.
Time on that. We're going to do that one. It's coming down the road. It's one of the ones on the list is 3-piece. So, but another one that I'm not doing this as a parting shot. It's going to sound like one when I say it, but Lars Ulrich.
Dude, how do you deny his drumming ability? He's an
ability. Hold on, I'm not arguing ability, but on a top 50 list,
dude, come on. I mean, when you're
we might not see eye to eye on this.
Well, when you basically are the origin or the.
Hold on. So you mentioned somebody earlier from Slayer. And
from Slayer, you mentioned Slayer.
I mentioned someone from Slayer, but you talk about the bands that were coming up at that time, and if you actually listen to the drums, they're not that different. Metallica had something different, where they dipped their toe in mainstream enough that they caught on. I think that bands like Slayer and Testament and
Anthrax.
A lot of those bands that were Anthrax that were coming up in metal. Well, Anthrax kind of had their two toes in.
Yeah.
But I think when you look at the bands that came up at that time, the metal bands that were, quote unquote metal at the time, there's not much of a difference between the drumming. If you really listen to like Slayer.
But there is, because after 87-ish, Metallica went softer, whereas, and I say softer, I mean more palatable than Slayer or Anthrax or that. They left the thrash scene. They stayed in heavy metal, but they left the thrash because there's a big difference between the big four.
Right. But are you saying that because of his diversity, he's deserves to be on the list?
No, I think he's on that list just by name because he's like we brought up Tommy Lee because of he's basically the alpha in a metal band that's maybe unfortunately stood the test of time at this point. And if you saw the country version of the Four Horsemen, I will. Yeah, I'll that's Exhibit A, but that's
don't even think I'm going to put it on the Spotify list.
Beside the fact that Lars Ulrich has to be mentioned in
but so high. I mean, he appears in like top 10 lists. I just don't see it. You and I can punch it this one.
Well, his abilities alone are. I mean, he.
But again, I think that if you put him in the group of people that he fits in,
I agree.
don't think his ability is any better than Travis Barker
or he's
Phil Collins. Or
does that make him out of the top 10? You could name nine other drummers better than him, sure, but does that make him out of the top 10?
The last list I looked at, he was above Phil Collins. That's what I'm telling you. He just doesn't do it for me.
I'm not arguing the fact that he's the world's best drummer. I'm just saying he needs to be on a list. He needs to be recognized as influential, if nothing else.
So are we? Well, okay. I'll maybe give you the influential part, but I mean, when I'm talking about a list of top 10 rock drummers, it seems like a lot of these lists are taking not just talent or not just what they did for the band they were in.
It's notoriety also.
But notoriety too. So, but I don't have to agree with it.
With the drummers, it has to be. Because without notoriety of the band, again, tell me the drummer's name or the prowess of, I can't even think of an obscure band right now. But you see what I'm getting at. I'm making my own point. Try to, if you cannot name the drummer in an average band, or even a band that's lasted a long time.
Then how do I know the name Meg White? Why should I know that one?
You shouldn't, because it was the White Stripes, I guess. Jack White, and it's maybe his girlfriend, maybe his wife, maybe his sister, maybe his mom. Who knows? Yeah, whatever. I mean, it's the notoriety.
I guess. He's never been a standout for me. That band was never. That band was a perfect group of four guys. That it's kind of like Led Zeppelin. It was the perfect fit. Well, I wouldn't compare them to that because Led Zeppelin had standouts in every single spot, and
right. And we already established you can eliminate Jason Newsted's bass tracks on an album and nobody notices for 10 years.
Yeah, it was just sad. But if you look at I just don't feel that he even gets. I think he got notoriety because the band got notoriety. I don't think his drumming is what got him the notoriety, and that and his whole fight against Ticketmaster.
Exactly.
Or no, was it? He was against
Napster.
Yeah, he was the anti-Napster. Yeah. Pearl Jam was.
They're all against. I'm anti-Ticketmaster. I looked up concert.
Me too.
Just a quick Pete Pardo-esque side rant. I looked at Ticketmaster. The tickets were $27.50 and the fees were $31. The fees were more than the actual tickets. So I said, thank you. No, I will not go see that concert. I'm not even going to say who.
StubHub are becoming my friend.
I'm not
mortified. Endorsing StubHub.
I was literally mortified. Okay, rant over.
So, I mean, are we kind of rounded out? You mean to hit you with a parting shot and kind of go with that?
Well, again, you know me. I just wanted to mention a couple other ones because I am more towards the metal side.
Yeah.
I did mention him earlier. Nico McBrain there from Iron Maiden.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Dude's amazing. Always amazed me. I mean, like, and we were talking about, the size of the drum kit. He always got swallowed up behind the kit. And I did mention Charlie from Anthrax, one of my early influential. I mean, I love that galloping rhythm double kick bass that he kind of, I don't know.
But it still kind of fits in with that Metallica
sure,
feel.
Not exactly world class, but I mean, one of my favorites. Yep. The one that did stand out in a group of is, it's no secret I'm a fan of Pantera. Vinnie Paul, rest in peace, was very different. To keep up with the likes of the rest of Pantera, Vinnie Paul always amazed me. His drumming did stand out against his brother's guitar work, and that was, they're both gone now. But that I was always amazed by Vinnie Paul's, and even in his later work with Hell Yeah, and with some of the members of Mudvayne, it was just I always dug him. And the one kind of obscure side note was Tim Alexander from Primus. That guy has to keep up with. You talk about changing beats and changing rhythms and intricacies and drumming in songs. I was always amazed at his ability to keep. I mean, yes, I'm sure there was months in the recording studio to try to get it all timed out, but Primus's their rhythm section is, I mean, come on. I mean, you got Les Claypool and then Tim, they call him Herb or whatever, on drums. Well, off and on. For the most part, it's been him for their major albums. And
well, I think you brought up another good point. I thought we were going to tie up, but this brings up a really good point. Being the rhythm section, the quote unquote rhythm section of bands, is the drummers and the bass players kind of feeding off each other.
Right.
And I think that a lot of the bands that do that well, the band is kind of more rounded out on the bottom end.
Sure.
The guys that come in there and again, I actually put Billy Sheehan as one of my top ones in the bass section, but a lot of the bands he played with, they were okay. It just never felt like the fit, because I always got the feeling he was playing bass. And, unfortunately, that's kind of the way I feel about Rush. I kind of feel about the separation between Geddy Lee's playing and Neil Peart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always felt like it didn't gel really well. Like they were trying to play against each other more than they were trying to play with each other.
Except in YYZ, but go ahead.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it's always. There's,
no, I know.
But if you listen to like,
no, I know what
Limelight. Limelight is one of the ones where I listen to the bass line and I listen to the drums at times, and I'm going, what are they doing? Can you guys just get together, because it's a really good song.
Yeah.
But then you mentioned, the ones you just mentioned make that band meld. I mean, bands like Tool, if you listen to the bass in Tool and the drums in Tool, they got to be on. Primus, those guys got to be together.
Yep.
Because
or it doesn't work.
Exactly.
Right.
So I think that those being the rhythm section definitely have to work together, and I think that's probably why I have so much respect for people like Dave Grohl, even though I'm not a huge Foo Fighter fan. But if you listen to their music, it's so well put together, because I think he connects with the drums.
Sure.
I think he understands what the drums do to a song, and sometimes his melody lines on guitar and his singing meld with that. And I think that's what really ends up making a good rhythm section. And,
I guarantee it helps. Having knowledge of the instrument, I guarantee it helps.
Yeah, but also just being able to play with it and to know it and to work around it and
sure.
know the sound and stuff too. So
absolutely.
So in my parting shot, I want to preface this parting shot with saying that most of the time my parting shot is I know you're going to cringe and I know you're going to hate me for 3 days afterwards.
Nah.
I'm going to have to put a song on there.
Not really.
by Kip Winger. I mean, by somebody that you don't like. Yes, the Spotify list did have 17 on it.
The last one is the last podcast is I had an inexcusable equation that Winger was better than Slayer, and to all of my listeners, I apologize.
It has to be in context. In
no, it doesn't. Not that statement. No, it doesn't. Never. Not even in Bizarro World is that an okay statement. I apologize to everyone, including Slayer.
So, what the parting shot today is more of a let's talk about it, because it's, I hate to say it's the elephant in the room, but let's talk about Rick Allen. So, wow, to go from nothing, from playing drums with two arms to losing one. No, but seriously though, think about that, man.
No.
Of all the instruments, I know there's a little side note. You and I don't know if you were with me or not. I went to see a friend of mine, Mike Schilling, play in a band, and they had a guitar player who his right hand was missing. He'd lost his right hand.
Ooh, but real quick. Authority Zero's guitar player is missing like just below the elbow, and he's got like a popsicle stick taped onto his nub there to play guitar. Punk guitar. Check that out. It's good stuff.
Well, I will be doing that.
Go ahead.
But this guy had done kind of the same idea. He'd basically taken a pipe fitting around his arm and made a pick affixed to it.
Right.
And that's how he played guitar. And to overcome that and to look at Rick Allen and I mean, their biggest album, whether you like it or not. I'm not a big fan of that album.
I am actually.
If
they never play Pour Some Sugar, there's some good songs on there though, man. There's some good songs.
Yeah, Armageddon, it's pretty good. I mean, like I said, you're right. It's not.
I like Rocket a lot.
But if you're looking at that album, for him to overcome what he went through and not only still be able to play, period, but to be able to put a really good beat behind some really amazing songs at the time.
Right. Now, is it... I don't know, man. He's a drummer, and I think it was like the behind the music with Def Leppard. They're like, he's a drummer, and he knows, he didn't forget how to play drums just by losing his arm. He just had to figure out a different way to get it out.
Yeah.
So does by making like kick pedals for the different drums, does that make it, I don't want to say easier, but does that fall into like a, almost like a drum beat? Don't hate me. You know what I mean? Like, how much of that stuff do you think is? Okay, now we're in an age. Even back then, that was what, mid-late 89 or something. Hysteria came out.
Probably, I would say.
So,
his accident was in early 80s, so it would have been mid to late at some point.
So I'd say 87 to 89, to guessing.
I'm looking it up, but go ahead.
Well, there wasn't auto-tune yet as far as, like singers and on stage and whatever. But how much of that like in concert do you think was drum tracked? Do you think was, you don't have to, lip sync. Yeah. But if you're just making the motions, I'm sure there is a level of the guy can play drums even with one arm, and with the pedal setup and everything else. And I've never really looked into how it works, but I would just about bet there had to be some level of, dude, we got a drum track, just in case, it's right. It's playing back. There's, like I said, we've seen people lip sync. We've seen, the guitars. We've seen all these instruments, pop, rock, and otherwise. Nothing to take anything away from him. I know he's a good drummer, but I would just the feat that he actually does it with one arm after having an accident is impressive.
Yeah.
Does that mean should be on the on a greatest drummer list? I would have to disagree.
Well, I think it kind of falls into the same vein that we talked about before.
Notoriety.
With Ulrich being on there.
Right.
Honestly, I put those two guys together, and one plays metal and one plays rock, and I'm about equal on them, to be honest with you. I am.
Yeah, probably.
So Hysteria was 87.
Okay.
His accident was 84.
Okay.
So On Through the Night, High and Dry, and Pyromania were all before the accident.
Great albums.
Yeah. Oh, but dude, On Through the Night's one I can put on front to back and listen to.
Sure.
A very underrated album. And then
is Hysteria. I mean, I could probably skip a couple of tracks, but I mean, to be realistic, that was, I hate to say that was kind of like our heyday. We were like,
yeah, it was.
It was right there. That was big.
Thanks for showing our age.
Well, I'm not ashamed of it. It's just that's kind of I mean, I would just about now, if you've still got the album up on your computer, I would just about bet there's at least 3 number 1 songs off that album, if not 4 or 5.
So, again, let me just reiterate, the gap between Pyromania and Hysteria was only 4 years.
Sure.
So 1 year after Pyromania, the accident, or roughly.
Right.
And then 3 years between that and going on tour.
Right.
For an album.
Right.
After losing your arm.
Sure.
And severely shattering your right shoulder.
Right.
Let's see what made it to number 1 off that album. Well, I mean, the album itself was number 1 on pretty much every chart.
And probably at least 10 or 11 times platinum.
Oddly enough, it was U.S. Oh. Why is it? It's on the U.S. Billboard 200 in 2018? As number 1? Or number 39, I'm sorry. But still, what?
Must have been a song in a movie or something that made it chart again or something.
Anyways, 12 times platinum.
Yeah, I was close. 11. I said 11, yeah. And I'll bet there's at least 3, probably closer to 6 number 1 songs off that. Love Bites, Pour Some Sugar on Me.
Animal. Hysteria itself.
Hysteria. Maybe? Rocket, maybe.
Armageddon it?
Maybe. I'll bet there's at least 3.
Yeah, I don't.
No, I know you'd have to go through in each individual song, but I mean, we don't have the time right now, but that's what I'm saying. Is that because of notoriety? Is it because did it sell that way because the album was that good, or because like, wow, this guy's got one arm? They got a one-arm drummer. Did Metallica sell that many albums because Lars Ulrich was that good? No.
That's what I'm saying. Is I think he deserves being on the list. I think that when you talk about notoriety of a drummer, I'm surprised we didn't come around to him at some point anyways. But
as a body of work, I agree. As a one-arm drummer, I don't think it makes a difference.
That's what I'm saying. Is I really think the fact that he overcame that adds to what he did. I mean, because again, if you listen to like Pyromania,
see, I think that just adds to the notoriety. The first 3 albums, I think his drumming ability, yes, and the last however many they've put out, I think it's a lot more on notoriety, because I don't think that improved his drumming.
No, it didn't. But if you think about the time frame again, like you said, Hysteria was in the heyday of that sound.
Yes.
If they didn't change their sound, their next few albums weren't going to sell because everybody was on to grunge at that point.
Right.
I mean, Hysteria was 87. Their next album didn't come out till 92. What's between there?
Yeah. Well,
Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden.
And name me one song off that album, Def Leppard album.
Can't.
Right.
Can't. I mean, I know the album was Adrenalize. I just don't know anything that would have been on it that I would have picked as something.
Well, I know. I'm sure there was radio play, but that.
Oh yeah, there was. Sorry, I looked it up. There is one. Let's Get Rocked.
See, I hate that you even said that, because now I'm gonna have to. I can't get that. I already can't get that
and
song.
And now I have to put it on the Spotify list.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I don't think. I think it's 50-50 drumming ability / notoriety with Rick Allen. He's not a bad drummer, but again, I don't think losing an arm made it, better, other than adding tools.
Yeah, but I think it was more, again, as a parting shot. It's so hard to find people that can overcome those issues. He could have just said, I'm done.
No doubt.
You know, there's no way I'm coming back from this. I use my arms as my tool, but he didn't.
Absolutely.
And I think that's probably why I just wanted to touch on his story a little bit, because, man, there's definitely inspiring. And at the time, it was inspiring for me too. You know, I was actually, 84, 84 to 87 was the time frames.
Yeah.
You know,
from the accident,
89, it was probably when I started learning guitar, and people like that are what inspired me to continue to do stuff like that. And going and seeing my friend's band with, you know, a guy with one hand, you know, picking his guitar with no hand, and I'm like, this, you know, stuff like that makes me want to play, because if they can do it, I've got two perfectly good hands and two perfectly good arms. I should be doing this as well. I should be spending my time learning some type of craft. You know, music was it for me, but I should be doing something, because they've obviously got one up on me at this point.
Well, and that can certainly transcend music and or a podcast and or even us in general. There are a lot of people that don't have the ability to do things they shouldn't be able to do. And we sit here and talk about, you know, I'll have to say that Meg White's a better drummer than I am, and so I'll leave it at that. I could probably keep up with her, but you know,
you just keep setting
I know.
That's opening lines up.
I'm going to keep lobbing them over the plate, and you can keep knocking them out of the park. But yeah, it's I mean, not to get too serious, but that is you know, words for life. You know, I mean, there's guys getting they're literally drummers in world famous rock bands get their arms cut off in a car wreck, and you know, they're back playing drums, you know, a couple years after that. Yep. So,
and not just playing, but making multi-platinum albums.
Right. So if we're, you know, whatever,
get out and do something,
twist an ankle or something, and you quit doing, you go on disability because of it, no, you don't have an excuse.
No, exactly. Get out and do something.
Exactly.
Well, we got rhythm, lead, and so we actually got pinged on social media the other day that we got to do keyboards, or piano, whatever you want to call it. So I guess we're looped into that one.
Well, I mean, that'd be, I don't know, like maybe that could be like a parting shot on one of them or something. I don't know.
Well, I think rhythm and lead, we'll probably do them in that order, and maybe we'll throw piano in at the end of rhythm. I don't know. I got a lot to talk about rhythm. That's my wheelhouse. So
sure. Well, I mean, there's I'm sure that in the grand scheme of things, there are a lot of talented keyboard/piano players out there. Not many of which fall into the rock and metal category that we tend to surf in, but we'll try to catch a wave and see if we can get it halfway to the beach anyway.
Maybe we just need to bring Pete Pardo in on that one, just, you know, to fill out the time. Because, you know, mine's going to take about 2.5 minutes. Yours will probably take about
6, 3, maybe tops. Yeah.
Cool. Well, we'll catch up with you in a couple weeks, brother. Thanks for hanging out and talking.
All right, bro. We'll talk to you later.
Yep, see ya.
See ya.
We want to talk to you about music, so reach out to us at musicmusingfeedback@gmail.com.
You can also find us on most social media sites by searching Music Musing or George or Craig Seibert, Sybert.
And you can also find us on Twitter as musicmusing_ as well.
Thank you for listening to this Music Musing podcast.